today's event, show and tell on building Kenyan language datasets. Our speakers today will be Professor Florence, Dr. Lydian Wanzari, and Dr. Edward Ombui. So feel free to tweet about today's event on our Twitter handle, AI Kenya 1, hashtag AI Kenya, hashtag AI Kenya Show and Tell. Share any questions you have, any insights that you're picking from the event, or if you'd like other people to join, please inform them using Twitter or any other social media platforms that you have. I'll just go briefly into what AI Kenya is. We are a community of practitioners and enthusiasts in artificial intelligence and its related technologies. We started in October 2017, simply as a WhatsApp group that eventually grew to a Telegram group, and we started having online sort of discussions, and then moved to events and other programs. And we majorly come together to engage, learn, grow, and stay informed on all matters and topics artificial intelligence. So when I say AI and its related technologies, I'm talking about data analysis, data engineering, data science, robotics, machine learning, data visualization. And we cover both technical and non-technical topics. So we also have events or discussions around data privacy and data protection. We are a community for both techies and non-techies, and you'll see this through the different blend of events and initiatives that we have. So we exist primarily to democratize machine intelligence, and this means we are trying to make artificial intelligence as a technology more accessible to anyone who is interested in it, whether they're interested to learn, whether they're interested to contribute toward its growth, or just have a discussion around it. We consider ourselves an enabler and ecosystem builder in the Kenyan tech industry. So how do we achieve this? We are building and enabling a thriving AI ecosystem where people can learn, grow, engage, and stay informed. I'll briefly touch on this through the next couple of slides. By learning, we aim to ensure that our community members can build and advance their knowledge and skills across different topics. We do this through event types like Code Maktaba, which are technical workshops where we share knowledge and transfer skills on technical topics around data science, data engineering, machine learning. We have Show and Tell, an event like the one we have today, where we invite community members and other practitioners in the industry to share the work that they're working on, whether it's a final year project, whether it's a project they're doing at work, or if it's a research that they're working on. We have Mawaidha sessions where we basically invite a technical speaker, invite a speaker to come and talk about a technical topic that is related to AI and share their thoughts and then engage with the audience. We also have hackathons where participants get to learn new skills, solve problems, and get rewarded at the same time. And then, of course, we also have documentaries, screenings. We aim to grow our community members from the stage where they are, whether they're a beginner or an expert. And we do this by connecting them to a well-curated list of opportunities, whether they're jobs, research opportunities, and so on. We share this on our website and we update it on a daily or weekly basis based on the availability of opportunities. Then we also aim to connect and bring together community members to engage with each other, to network and grow. So we have different platforms from our Slack group. We also have our Telegram group and our WhatsApp group where our community members can talk to each other, share resources, ask questions, and you can access this through our Linktree page. Just search Linktree AI Kenya, and you'll get a page that has all these resources. Then, of course, we aim to make sure that we keep you informed in terms of the latest development, news, the global and regional AI space. We do this through the AI Kenya newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter that shares news opportunities around the AI space in Africa, particularly Kenya. We have a YouTube page where we share different videos from our podcast, from recordings from our events, and even business interviews, so that anyone who is missing out on the events or anyone who cannot participate physically in different programs can still gain from the work we're doing. So moving on to today's topic, it's majorly about creating language data sets. And having worked in the AI ecosystem building industry here in Kenya, I've been getting so many requests through that period from researchers or different data scientists who are asking whether a certain data set is available. And most of the time, if the data set is not available, the data scientist or the researcher, they normally stop their work there. But that points to that leads to the point that we don't have a data set availability problem. We have a data set creation problem. So you will find very few researchers or very few scientists actually taking the effort to create a data set and then make it available to the industry or academia at large. So we are encouraging more people or more practitioners in the data space to create data sets that other people can access and then improve on it so that we can build solutions that affect people's lives positively. So throughout the event, you'll be able to share questions through the Slido platform. We've shared this on our Twitter page. We have shared a link. Alternatively, you can just visit slido.com and then click on joining as a participant, and then just key in Dataset Kenya. And then you'll be able to be presented with a page where you can share questions, and we'll be able to present that to the speakers. Good. So now I'd like to invite our speakers for the day to share their presentation with us. And then after that, we can be able to share the questions that the community has with them. So welcome, Lillian and Dr. Edward.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you, Alfred. Good evening, everyone. As you've been told, my name is Dr. Lydian Wanzari from Otieno University, and also part of the AI Kenya group, and particularly working together in this project called the Ken Corpus project. I'd like also to thank Edward and the team for inviting us, and not Alfred and the team for inviting us to this wonderful event. So let's tune in and we can learn together. So our focus today is really to take us through what we have been working on in the past year in terms of building language datasets, particularly for Kenyan languages that are considered to be what we call low resource in terms of there are not so many digital data available that can be used to train machine learning or NLP kind of models. You can move. So today, part of the team is here. We have Professor Florence Ngesa, who is the Associate Professor of Kiswahili Studies and the Chair of Department of Kiswahili and Other African Languages, Otieno University. She'll be talking to us at some point. Her research interests are in pragmatics, discourse, and Kiswahili language and literacy, in particularly in higher education. Yeah, she'll say hi at her appointed time. You also have Dr. Edward Mbui from African Nazarene University. He's a senior lecturer there and HOD of the Department of IT, and also his research interests are in AI, NLP, and also in machine translation. You'll also hear his voice and he'll talk more about his experience. Now, KenCopa's team is wide. Okay, we are just 3 here as investigators. We have 3 other colleagues also who are investigators. That is Dr. Lawrence Mushemi from University of Nairobi, Dr. Owen Onyango from Mark Onyango from Maseno University, and Barack Wanjava from Nairobi University. So they're also part of the team. But again, there's a bigger team who are actually involved in the task or in the KenCopa's project. And we are really, really, really happy that at least we're able to build a community around building linguistic datasets for NLP, particularly for Kenyan languages. So this is a picture of us in our this year's workshop as we are doing the annotations and the other tasks that we'll explain more within the course of this video. So you'll be welcome so much to be part of the team. We'll tell you how towards the end. So keep tuning in. Why KenCopa's? So KenCopa's is really Kenyan languages corpus in full. It is a project that was and is funded by Lacuna Fund, who support building datasets for various machine learning tasks and various AI tasks. So for this particular task, they were focusing on building datasets, particularly for natural language processing. They have other calls for climate, for health, but our project was funded under the building NLP datasets. Yeah, we are really inspired by the fact that you do not have, we don't see African languages in the NLP space. Okay, you can hardly find working usable parsers for Kikuyu, the Luo, Luya, Kikamba, whichever language. Yeah, how? Why not? It is our responsibility as the native speakers of these languages and also as tech enthusiasts and those who have the technical knowledge to make this possible. We also want to revive and revitalize our African languages, because if we use them and if we get tools for them, we will keep them alive for our future generations. Otherwise, if we do not, then they will just disappear like other languages have already disappeared. Yeah, and really, really, we want to be able to populate a resource. People can be able to go and find texts and voice data for our African languages. You can check that on our website. We'll show you the link at the end. And also, we want to be part of this ideology that you want to introduce really, really local languages in our CBC programs. And with that, they will need to have resources that our children, our students are able to use and be able to access any language that they so wish to access. Now, as Alfred had said earlier, the main challenge of why these tools are not accessible in our various African languages is really there is lack of adequate requisite data for building NLP tools. As we know, for most machine learning projects here, it heavily relies on availability of high quality data sets. If you want to train a parser, if you want to train a machine translation model, if you want to train any other model or build any other model in NLP in particular, you need data sets. But how are we able to build these data sets? Okay, so in this particular program or project, we had 5 major objectives really. First, we had to start from somewhere. Of course, Kenya has many languages, yeah? And here there are now 62 or what languages. To start with, we chose, as a kind of pilot, we chose Kiswahili, Luya, and Luo. And we went out to collect as much speech data, like spontaneous speech or recorded speech data of the various languages, together with text data. And we all know that also Luya is wide. So under Luya, we also went into 3 specific dialects, that is Lugoli, Lumarachi, and Lubukus. So we have those texts available in speech and in voice and in text format. But on top of that, we wanted to also to try other use cases here. Yeah? So we have part of speech tagging where we're able to annotate a sample of our text for the Luo and the Luya text with part of speech. We also have transcriptions where we're able to have a mapping between the speech and the text, really for building automatic speech recognition systems. And then a 4th use case that we had also was, how are you able to build question answering systems? So we annotated different Swahili texts with the questions and answers, again, relating to that particular text for training QA systems. But our focus for this today is our use case on machine translation. So that is going to be our focus. We wanted to also to build what we call parallel corpora, okay, like a text in one language and the same text in another language, yeah, for us to be able to have data sets to train machine translation systems in our various languages. So we will focus on our 5th use case for this. And with that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Ombui, to take us through how we went about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Wanzari. I hope I'm audible. Yes, so when we started out in this particular project to develop our data sets, right from the data collected, and as it was rightly said, we have a history of oral history as compared to documenting our languages. So the first thing we wanted to do is to collect, definitely there are few secondary data which is available out there, maybe some textbooks or some books, storybooks in our local languages, but then we intended to collect a big chunk of it to be primary data. So this data was collected, we asked, and shortly we should be showing you how we went about it, but we structured our data sets into those 4 levels, whereby we had level 0, level 1, level 2, and level 3, whereby level 0 comprised of the raw scanned manuscripts and all the text files or the PDFs that we're able to lay our hands on as we collected the data. So these ones are in the raw format, but then scanned. So for the compositions that were written by primary and high school students and other community writers, we're able to scan those and have them in a digital format. So the next level was to convert that into a digital format, rather, and to make sure that you can be able to use them, clean them up, remove the noise and a lot of other inconsistencies. Then level 2, we went into the part of speech tagging, the translations for the different language pairs. Then finally, we had the last level whereby, before sharing it to the public, and actually, we should be able to share all these different levels, because depending on your research aim or purpose, there's some who might find level 1, or they may want to drill down to maybe to the very basic, the raw manuscripts. Then all that is available. So you can go up and down on that hierarchy. So for that data collection, what we did, we had 4 primary sources. We had the community, the local communities. We had schools, so students in those schools were able to write the compositions in their native languages. We had a lot of resources from the local media or the native media stations, and also from publishers who have been able to publish previously in the local languages. So with that, we structured our data collection. In fact, even before this, making sure that, yes, we have this whole structure of, we have the investigators, we have the research assistants, we have the resource people at the community level. So we had all that hierarchy just to make sure that there's continuous relay of information right from the source all the way to our servers. So as Lilian rightly put it, we had 3 primary languages, Swahili, Kiswahili, Dholuo, and the 3 dialects of Luya. And so our categories, so that, I know currently we have a lot of literature, religious literature, but we just wanted to make sure that it's actually representative of, the kind of literature that you should be able to find, so that you're not training language technologies which are quote unquote religious because of religious data that is available, but cutting across the different genres. So we looked at all the different domains in agriculture, in education, and then the different categories, not just having letters, but essays, songs, etc. So I'll invite Prof to take us through the scheme that we used in preparation for translation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ombui and Dr. Lilian. Thank you, Alfred, for giving us this platform. My name is Professor Florence Indede. I'm involved in this Ken Corpus project, and I was mainly coordinating the Luya team in researching Lulogoli, Lumarachi, and Lubukusu, and also coordinating translation exercises and annotation exercises. We came up with a translation guide or scheme to guide our translation data treatment. And we realized that in translation, languages have different linguistic structures and word order, which can either, if they're not taken into detailed consideration, meaning can be distorted. So we were translating from Lumarachi, Lubukusu, Lulogoli, and the Luo to Kiswahili, and looking at especially Luo structure and Kiswahili structure has no relationship because Luo is Nilotic, Kiswahili is Bantu. Otherwise, the Luya is closely related because Luya is Bantu, Kiswahili is Bantu. Nevertheless, we could not assume that even if these are Bantu languages, we could have direct meaning. The unit of translation that we focused on was sentence meaning. We were going as per sentence and directed by Newmark 1988. We considered literal translation of meaning, direct translation, and communicative translation. Literal translation is committed to the real meaning of meaning of a word or an expression in language, regardless of whether it is direct or indirect, common or uncommon, non-metaphorical or metaphorical. We also considered close or direct translation, translation of meaning in context. This is where we really put our emphasis that whichever pathway we chose on translation, does it create a meaning within the context of the information being related? And again, we also looked at the figurative language, the metaphors, the idioms, the sayings, and looked at them in relation to the target language, which was Kiswahili. And in that, we looked for various ways in which we could resolve conflicts or differences in getting an equivalent meaning. In ensuring quality within the translation exercise, we had a pretest of our translation methodology, our translation tools, of where again, we also did a pilot translation. We also involved group translation and comparative translation, whereby we had more than one person translating the same text. We had our native language speakers involved in helping us get the real meanings. We had native speakers from a native speaker from Mombasa, who was used as our resource person, and also in our native languages where we collected data so that we could not have distorted data. We had native speakers from the Luo, from Luya, Lumaragoli, Marachi, Lubukusu, so that we could get the best data from the source. Our group, as we already saw the picture, we had linguistic experts in our group, we had technical experts in the group, and we also made reference to the dictionary and biblical texts in ensuring that we get the right meaning and we get the right terminology as equivalences in translation. Thank you, Dr. Mbui.
Yes, so one of the outputs of the translated works was parallel data sets. So you can see what is on the screen. We have the original sentence, as Prof indicated that our unit that we're considering was sentences. So we have the original sentence and the translated. So that is in the Luo and being translated into Kiswahili. So once you have such kind of a data set, then it makes it very easy for us now to move into building machine translation models. And we very well know that machine translation as a task itself, it really relies on two key domains, the computational linguistics and language engineering. And you need parallel corpora, like what I've just shown in the previous slide. And one other thing that you really have to consider is, as Prof indicated, is what's the quality of that translation. And so you really have to make sure that there's a mechanism of evaluating your translation for purposes of quality. So this can be done either using automatic techniques or manually by using human evaluators, which is the most assured way, because the consumers ultimately are human beings. So looking at the history of machine translation, there have been several approaches to machine translation, right from the rule-based to example-based to statistical machine translations. And since 2015 to date, there's a lot of focus on the use of deep learning, the use of neural networks to be able to train these machine translation models. So in our case, one of the things we wanted to do, not just to develop the data set, but can we actually try it out and see, is it working? Is it amenable for purposes of developing some of these language technologies like machine translators? So there are several tools and frameworks we use, right from once we had the scanned copies of the manual transcripts. In fact, we tried out a couple of software, OCR softwares, some paid, some free. And, we had a lot of challenges, but eventually we found, in fact, Google Docs, you can actually translate. It's had one of the best translations or rather conversions when you're converting from, the manual, or is it an image trying to convert. So that came in handy. And our strategy was to use open source and free so that we make sure that the task is really manageable. And this is something that maybe, especially for this side of the world, we may not have all those resources. We can be able to start from some of the available resources which actually give us some good quality. So the general framework in developing our MT was the CRISP-DM, which is very common across industry process for data mining. And it has those steps. So we used Keras, which is one of the APIs that you can use to develop deep learning models that rides on TensorFlow and definitely Python. So I'm just gonna demonstrate, if I may allow me. Are you able to see my notebook? I hope it's clear.
Yes, we can.
So this is borrowed from Susan Lee's work and looking at what can we do. So I picked one of the files that had I think one of the biggest files that we had for the parallel corpora for the Luo and Swahili. So we loaded the Luo data and Swahili. And so you can see these were one of the longest sentences and the equivalent in Swahili, just picking from those two files. So checking out the vocabulary for that particular file, we're able to see that the Luo words were 24,000. The unique words were about 4,000. I'll not be surprised to find that these are equivalent of stop words. Then for Kiswahili, likewise, then went into the preprocessing, lower casing, as you saw previously, they were in uppercase, converting that to lowercase, and tokenizing that, and being able to, we definitely know that, especially for textual data, machine learning models don't work with text. You have to convert that text into an equivalent number, some kind of vector or some kind of embedding, or, it must be a numeric representation because that's the language of the computer to working with the numbers. Then when it comes to translation, you could tell that the same sentence, when translated to a target language, they will not be of the same length. So for MT, it's very important for them to have the same length. So for that purpose, we had to do padding to be able to establish and to make sure that those sentences are actually having the same length. Then going ahead to processing that, being able to see the length, for example, for the Luo was averagely 213, for Kiswahili was 221. The vocabulary size for those files were those ones. And we tried out, building models out of that particular data set using this for the recurrent neural network, also with embeddings and also with bidirectional RNN and encoder. So I can share, we'll avail this so that you can try it out and see, including also the data sets. Maybe at this point, I should be able to point you to the data sets where they're available. And I think down one of the slides. So these ones are publicly available on our site and on the Harvard Dataverse. So you'll see all the different types of data sets that we work with. The QA one, the POS, the speech one, the parallel, which is very important for MT in our case here, and then just the general one. So with that, then we're able to actually ascertain that, yes, this works, and it's actually, it can be used by, AI community, be it researchers, be it linguists, be it students who are studying for their postgrad, or just generally NLP enthusiasts who want to really venture into developing tools for the African languages. So I'll invite Prof to take us through some of the challenges that we faced.
Thank you, Dr. Mbui. In undertaking our research, we had various challenges, and we also looked at ways of mitigating these challenges as we went about starting off with our research project to the end. One of the challenges we faced was the lengthy bureaucracies in obtaining research permits in order to carry out the research. We had to undergo, our proposal had to go through the Maseno University Ethics Committee and also the NACOSTI, that is National Council for Science and Technology, to be able to secure a research permit. And again, when we set on to go to various sources of data collection, we had also to search for permits or letters to be able to introduce ourselves, to be able to permit us to go through schools or to go through other places that we were getting our data from, the churches, the media houses. So all these were really time consuming, whereby by the time we now settled down to do the research, we had consumed a lot of time through these bureaucracies rules and regulations. We also had challenges caused by delays in procurement of research material or research gadgets, because these being a formal research project, it had to go through the formal procurement processes, irrespective of whether the research tool was a small research tool, a microphone, whatever. All these had to go through the procurement procedures and processes. We encountered remuneration challenges in the field and with the group that we were working with. I remember we were being funded from a different source, and this money has to go through the university. So these bureaucracies and procedures, when money comes through the university, it has to go through a formal procedure to be able to be released for us to pay the group that we were working with. But at the same time, our proposal had no provision for remunerating research groups in the field. And so this was a very big deal, because everywhere we went, people were expecting to get some allowances from us, of which it was not easy to pay. During the data collection, we realized that oral texts have not been much preserved, neither have they been written. Our languages are really underserved, and hence we realized that for sure we didn't have text. Apart from a few texts from the churches, whereby we had biblical texts or commentary texts, and a few from publishing houses, we really had limited written text. The same time in the schools, you realize that in most of cosmopolitan schools, though in the rural setting, our children do not have proficiency or fluency of speaking mother tongue. And this was a very big issue, because you go to a school expecting that you are going to collect a lot of oral text, voice text, but you only get that maybe 5 or 10 are willing to write a composition, are willing to recite a poem or sing a song in the Luya dialect. And so when you come out from that field, you have very little information. And at the same time, we also had some personnel who are not much committed. During the translation exercise, we had blurred and scanned manuscripts. Some were not aligned. Some applications were not really good. So at first we could try the level from level 0 to level 1 conversion, and we could get that the information is really distorted. So then again, we have to go into manual processes to ensure that the translation or the text, the conversion is quality. And so that one also took us a lot of time. We also had rare language pairs, and as already mentioned earlier, is that during translation, these equivalencies are not very easy to come by, the equivalent terminologies. As we have already said, our languages are lowly resourced. They are not much documented. They are not modernized, and hence getting enough resources from these languages to be able to be translated into the Kiswahili language had a really big issue. Coming to the COVID-19 pandemic as an exigency, during research. Of course, when we started off our proposal writing, and that was in 2020, it was really the heights of COVID-19. Coming to 2021, we were into the COVID-19 pandemic. So when we went into implementation of our data collection, there were restrictions in most of the places we visited. And of course, there were those cautions in the schools and in media houses, in publishing houses, in public, wherever that we went, we had to take those precautions. And in resolving this particular challenge, we secured and distributed COVID-19 kits, the masks, the sanitizers, and we had to sensitize the public about COVID-19 before we went into data collection. And of course, those restrictions from the institutions also made our work not very easy because some institutions were not accepting access. Lessons learned. First of all, the importance of pilot study. We had very little time after getting our research money. We had very little time to do our pilot study and venture into actual research. So you could get that we were really hurrying to do the pilot study at the same time to do research. I've already talked about limited language resources, and we are saying that we really need, this is an urgency, we need to publish and preserve indigenous languages. We also realized that the face-to-face method of hands-on was a facilitator in production of translation results. Earlier, we had tried to distribute work to various participants, but it was really delayed because pushing people from a far distance is not very easy for them to be able to give you results. So we had to think about a quick way of ensuring that we have a quicker production, a more increased production by bringing people into a workshop, lock them in, concentrate, and do a hands-on translation. We also learned that prior establishment of contacts with the community, research groups, elders, media houses, churches, publishing houses, and schools is key in facilitating data collection. And in this particular process of data collection, we already established contacts, and we have a colleague on our project. He's called Dr. Owen, who is a PR, a director of PR, Maseno University, who has worked very closely with some of these groups we were visiting, and it was very easy for us to penetrate their firms and their companies in collecting data. Also, the elders we used, community elders, native speakers, facilitated our move into the communities and into the schools. We worked as a team. The principal investigators, the principal investigators, the 6 of us really worked as a team. And the advantage we got from this was that we were from various expertise. Dr. Mbui, Dr. Lillian are experts in ICT, and Mushemi, and also Wanjawa. I and Dr. Owen, we are linguists, and this one gave us an easy time to work together, distribute responsibility and every person knew what they were supposed, their roles and what they were supposed to do, including the research assistants and our resource persons. So when you are planning a research, you have to make sure that the people you are recruiting, be it technical persons, be it research assistants, resource persons, do they have the technical know-how of the content and the technicalities involved in that research? So this one was a very big advantage on our side. Dr. Mbuyu? In regard to the support needed in the community, as already mentioned within the challenges, that some communities are resistant and they really need to be paid. We need to sensitize our communities and involve them in researches, in scientific researches, so that they would know that this scientific research is for prosperity, that it will help our children, it will help the next generation, like what we are doing to preserve and document African languages, so that the communities do not just feel that every research must be paid, but it can be paid in kind, so that when we start a cultural library and any other resource centers, then it is beneficial to the community. And also that sensitization of importance of documentation and preservation of indigenous languages, indigenous knowledge and cultural languages and cultural knowledge is very, very important. And finally, it is also important for our institutions to realize that these lengthy bureaucracies are not have a negative impact towards the realization of a research project, so that at least some of the bureaucracies can be reduced, because they normally delay implementation of a project, and you can easily miss it out because you are also fighting and struggling to write a report to your funding organization, and yet the project has not started. So which particular report are you going to give, because you have not even started your phase one. Your phase two links into the phase one, and that continuity, and you only have 1 year to go. So sensitizing our institutions is very, very key on the negative effects of the lengthy bureaucracies. Thank you, Dr. Mbuyu.
Thank you so much, Professor Ndede. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbuyu. As Dr. Mbuyu had said earlier, you can access our work either from Kenkopa's site. Dr. Mbuyu, you can share our Kenkopa site for those viewing us to be able to see. So karibu, welcome to Kenkopa's. If you click on the corporate link, yes, we click on the corporate link, there is where we have our various data sets. Click the corporate link.
I hope you're able to see.
Yes. So we have the collected data there, translation, transcriptions, POS, question answering. You can also get them from there. Also from our website, you can be able to join our community so that can be able to be getting information. So if you click on community, there's a place where you're able to sign in and register yourself to be part of this community and participate hopefully in future projects in terms of building linguistic data sets for so that our languages are able to have tools for natural language processing. So thank you so much. That will be all for our end. Alfred, back to you.
Thank you very much, Lillian, Dr. Edward, and Professor Florence for the very good presentation. First of all, like to thank you for being part of the few researchers in the industry and in academia who are actually doing
significant work to contribute towards the digitization and preservation of Kenyan culture through languages in this particular context. So at this point, I believe we already have some questions that participants who are following the session have shared with us. I would like to invite George to take us through the questions from the audience, and then we can be able to answer them. So George, if you're there, you can take us through some of the questions.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Okay. So one of the questions that we have, it is what groups, ministries, or parastatals are we liaising with to build rich data sets that can be used to solve social challenges in the country? So to any of our guests, please feel free to answer. Yeah, so the question was what groups, ministries, parastatals, or parastatals are we liaising with to build rich data sets that can be used to solve social challenges in the country?
So it's asking if we had contacts or with the parastatals or the ministry, if I get it right.
Yeah, yes, if you had any relationship with them or any sort of co-working with them.
Not quite. We were mostly focused on the, it's part of the ministry, more on the county level, for us to be able to get involved, especially with the schools. So we went to the education to give us permission to go to schools to collect this data from the various primary, high schools, and also the university. So really our focus was more local towards individual counties and the education departments. So Dr. Mbu, you have something else to say, Prof?
Yes, we were partnering with publishing houses and also media houses. And this one gave us a close relationship to be able to collect text and what is broadcasted in the local languages to be able to translate into Kiswahili and also annotate. And with this, we were building a corpus for the media and also for publication. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Florence. So another question we have is, what are the already existing Kenyan local data sets and where can I find them? So I believe they can find them on the site you just shared, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So a lot of questions I can see here about the languages. So yeah, we'll just be sure to reshare the website that you've showed us to our listeners. Another question we have is, how did you account intonation since that weighs substantially on meaning and context? So how did you account for intonation?
How
did you account for intonation? Sorry, since that weighs substantially on meaning and context.
You're very right. Intonation accounts for meaning in context. But remember, I demonstrated that we had a translation guide, and this translation guide was taking into consideration meaning in context. So the meaning in context and communicative meaning goes into the idea of looking at that sentence, the whole of the sentence, or the words that are used in that sentence, and the context under which the word was used. So that context, when you're looking for an equivalent word for that particular word from a Luya dialect, then you have to look at what does it really mean in the context in which the word was used. So the intonation is very, very important. For example, let me give you the Luo words. There is the tongue, tongue, tongue. We have the tongue that can refer to an egg. We have the tongue that can refer to cutting. Cutting maybe using an axe or maybe using a panga and other tongues. So you can imagine that intonation. So you look at the meaning in context and ask yourself, did it mean an egg? Did it mean cutting into pieces? Or what did it mean? So that is how we were looking for equivalencies of translation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Florence. So another question I'm seeing here is, why did you choose Kiswahili as a translation target and not English?
One of the reasons why English actually is not really supported is that it's already over-supported, as there is enough tools for English, and the focus was really African languages. Yeah, so in principle, English is not an African language. So the most next universal African language in the region was Swahili. So Swahili cuts across several countries in East and Central Africa. So that is our next, global African languages, and then other languages. So English is not part of what was being considered as an African language. Yes.
Okay.
And
So
maybe
another question. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So as Dr. Wanzari Lydian has said, in fact, the African Union, if you allow me, the African Union included, as recognized, Kiswahili. There's something called Akalan. I don't know whether it will come up. African Academy of Languages. Okay, so the AU itself has recognized that that these languages are a rich resource for the continent, and they're really putting a lot of focus and trying to make sure that what can be done to preserve and to promote these languages. And so one of the things that recently that was agreed upon is, can we pick, maybe, as we know, on the northern of Africa, there's Amharic, on the southern side, maybe Shona, East Africa, it's Kiswahili, and West Africa, maybe it's, is it Yoruba? And in fact, to date, if we were to pick one language in Africa, most likely it might be Swahili, might be top. So we really want to push, it's an agenda, intentional agenda, to really promote these languages, right from the regional languages like Swahili. So Swahili is really central, not just in East and Eastern Africa, but then even Africa itself, it's recognized. And world over today, even Americans are learning Swahili.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mbui. So we do have another question over here from someone who wants to know what was the percentage efficiency of the translations from either Luo to Kiswahili? And they also want to know if the project is complete.
So for, I think if I got you right, one, we had two ways of doing that. We had the human translators to be able to confirm the quality. Is this really, as Prof indicated, that having multiple people relooking at the same sentence independently and trying to see what's the agreement. So that's one way to assure quality, to make sure that, yes, is this representative of the original text in the translated or the target language. Then for the automated ways, as indicated, you can either use Blue Score, the accuracies. One of the, very well with the machine deep learning, the more the data, the better. I really wished initially I'd run this, but then I think my GPU could not support the amount of data and the epochs that I was running. So the accuracies were, slightly below 80, but then that is really, really acceptable, based that it's, we're building on machine translators.
Okay. And so were you able to, sorry, go ahead, Lillian.
Oh no, if you have not finished, it's okay. I was saying about, is the project complete or not? So I wanted to answer that, but you can go ahead.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask about that. So was the project, is the project complete?
I'd like to see, I don't know if we'll ever complete, because what is complete? So this phase has been wound out, okay? But the project is not completed, more or less. Yes, we still need to collect more data sets. We still need to build on more African languages. It's only 3 we have started on. We have, 60 more to go. So it's still work in progress, and we are encouraging people to join our community to, bring this to this completion where it's, I don't know when. Yes.
Okay, good to know. We have a question from someone who is building a translation course in machine learning, and they ask, what recommendations will the speakers have for someone developing a course in machine translation for interpreters/translators in the African context? And they have a follow-up question to that, where they're asking, what fundamental topics do the speakers think the designer should include in such a course?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Generally, there are things, any course, not even this one, there are standard requirements for any course design, right from, what's the outcome, what's the learning outcomes for, based on the objectives that you've come up with that particular course. So, and then who's your target student or learners at that particular point. So I think those are standard things, and maybe specifically now looking at translation, and I think some of those questions have come up, and I believe Professor is better placed from her department, because they do this very often. That the issues of context, the issues of, how useful is this, the issues of that pragmatism, in that how in touch is it with the ground, the way we say in Kenya, kwa ground vitu ni different. Is it in isolation, or do you keep that link to continually, cross-check and to see that it's actually, it's ground-based, it's relevant and up to date.
Thank you, Dr. Mbui. Could you kindly go back, Kirui? Is it Kirui, or on the first question that you asked, huh?
Mm-hmm.
On course development?
Yes, so the question was, what recommendations will the speaker have for someone developing a course in machine translation for interpreters or translators in the African context?
Yes, machine translation for interpreters. First and foremost, remember, we are talking about a course that fits into a curricula. And within the curricula, as Dr. Mbui has already explained, you are asking yourself that what does the curricula entail? What are the main objectives of this particular curriculum within what you want to develop in interpretation and translation? What are your main objectives? Is it proficiency? Is it basic knowledge of the concepts of interpretation and translation? Or do you want somebody to be really well-trained in interpretation and translation? And again, we are also taking into consideration the levels of knowledge of the target group. Your trainees, for example, those ones that you are developing the course for. How knowledgeable are they, first of all, in the languages that you want to use, and in the techniques of interpretation and translation? So if you take all this into consideration, then definitely it will now lead you into inputting the right objectives, the right outcomes, and then the resources, material resources that would be used in training these people that you want to be your interpreters and translators. And hence now you go back and try to design the required materials, because it's like you want to train a group of people who would be experts in interpretation. So which language are you targeting? Which source language and which target language are you targeting these interpreters? For example, you are targeting people to be translators and interpreters from Luhya to Kiswahili. What is their level of knowledge of Luhya and what is their level of knowledge of Kiswahili? And then what is their level of knowledge of interpretation skills? Because that is also an area you want to explore, interpretation skills, so that if they don't have, then your course has to put into consideration that kind of technical, the technical know-how of interpretation skills. Then which resources are there? For example, the texts, the books, the other apps that will help them in doing translation. Remember, we have the machine interpreters, or sorry, maybe we call them conference interpreters, for example. And when you talk about conference interpreters, whereby a language, one language is being used to interpret or to translate to another language, then look at your Luhya language. Is it in the machine? Definitely not. The Luo language, is it in the machine? Definitely not. So the first thing you'll want to do is that, is this language comprehensible in the machine? Is it already there? So that when somebody wants to be an expert in the use of machine, then these resources are already there, and it will be easier for that person to develop or to translate to another language. So there are so many things that you put into consideration when you are developing a course or a curricula to a target a community of persons whom you want to be experts. Thank you, George.
Okay, thank you, Florence. So the next couple of questions are regarding the data sets. So we have the first one here. So they ask, what is the demand for these data sets? Is it mostly for research purposes, or is there commercial demand?
Dr. Wanzari, I don't know, what are the stats so far on how many people downloaded and all these?
Okay, so it's both, I would say. One, there's a lot of research demand for these data sets, in that right now, AI for everyone, you want to be able to make tools and services available to everyone in their languages, for this topic. So there's a lot of demand in terms of research. It starts from research, and again, there's a lot of demand in terms of commercial demand. You can just imagine how much during COVID period, how much translators had to be hired to be able to make available, issues regarding COVID, which were predominantly in English, but they had to be made available in Kiswahili and other languages. That was a really high demand for that. So yes, we haven't reached that efficiency level already for having automatic translations for the Luo or Luhya or any other language, but we want to get there. So there's a lot of research demand to get there, but applications in terms of commercial need is also there. So if you look at our dataverse, already the our data set, the Kenya translation data set, has been downloaded 11,486 times. And it is barely 2 months online. Okay, so that tells you how much people are looking and interested in using our data set. I'm even surprised, 11,000 already. Yeah. So yes, it's really, really on demand in terms of creating machine translation tools.
And probably to add, was it in February also, we're getting a lot of requests from MSc students in, specifically, I think the ones that I've seen come to my mailbox is from the University of Nairobi. People who are interested in doing research in language technologies for their master's projects and all that. So they're finding this very valuable for them to be able to complete and defend their thesis.
Okay, thank you very much. So second question on data. Is the data that's available that has been collected from this project ready to use for a newbie in machine learning?
Yes,
by newbie, I think they mean someone who's just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah, I think right from the example I showed here, you can see there's a file called Doluo, which you can get from here. In fact, it's one of the many files. So it was one of the largest files. When you open it, I think we had something here. It looks like this. There's one sentence with the original text and, sorry, maybe let me just, one sentence in the original text, then the translated sentence. So depending again on your proficiency, skills in machine learning and all that, but it's very possible to split this. Like now in my case, what I did, this is what is available. So on the code, you'll see I extracted all the originals into one file so that I have a language file called Doluo. Then another file I extracted using, I wish there was that code here, but you can also be able to Google quickly and to see, you can write a simple script to quickly just pick out, alternating records, alternating sentences, because as you can see, there's a pattern. And I think that's the beauty in machine learning. It's about patterns, being able to quickly identify patterns, relationships, and all that. So with that, once I did that, then we're able to now, convert that, and the rest is more of a desktop task whereby you let the machine, the algorithms learn on their own, maybe with tweaking here and there on the different parameters. So it's very, very possible.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mbui. We have one was watching who wants to know if there's any assistance required with your ongoing projects and how one can assist. So is there any opportunities for that sort of thing? And also we have another one who on the same topic who's asking about academic research opportunities. So do you have those in the work you're currently doing?
Sorry, I do want to answer all the questions.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lydian.
I know what's really in the background they will wish me to say, but yes, there's opportunity to improve on what is already there. One, we have a few thousand sentences, but you can imagine for the machine translations between, let's say, English and maybe German or French, they have millions of sentences. So you're really, kilometers behind. So we need help in terms of improving that. So what we really want people right now to help us with is if we have the Swahili text, they're kind of more than the other languages. Are we able to find good translators to help us translate from Kiswahili to any language, really any language you so wish? If you're good in, Somali, help us translate, Kiswahili to Somali, things like that. So that is one way we can be able to assist for the linguistic students. Okay, and also to try out various machine learning models. That can be somebody's research, play around the different data sets and play around different machine learning models. But outside machine translation, we have other things. As you should remember from the introduction, we have part of speech tagging, we have question answering systems, we have transcription. So we also still need help in those ones. So feel free to reach out if you're looking for a research topic and things like that. You can be able to join and find something to do within the project. Maybe not completely funded, I won't say that, but yes, there is things to do.
Thank you, Dr. Lillian.
Yes.
Just to add on that is that in our research project, we included our students, both at the master's and PhD level, who really benefited from this project, whereby they developed, they advanced their researches, most of them who are researching on African languages, and some were researching on Kiswahili. They developed their research proposals and also their thesis from this research project. And at the same time, those ones who had not known much about AI, especially machine translation or language processing, machine language processing, have now developed an interest to move from the traditional way we've been doing our language researches and now move into technology within their research. So this is only but a beginning, and what we have put on the website is really, really a step forward for creating a big opportunity for people who are interested in moving into AI and especially natural language processing and machine learning. Thank you.
Yes, probably for my end is to also flip it the other way around. I like the first question. How can we assist, or how can someone assist KenCorpus? Definitely, there are multiple ways you can be able to plug in, and Dr. Lillian has mentioned, and Prof. By either as a developer, you can be able to check out and see, wait a minute, I'm finding something broken, or is it possible for you to be able to avail this data set in a way that might be more amenable for example, QA, or for training some kind of machine learning classifiers. So we'll be very happy to avail that data in those formats. Maybe some people are like, hey, is it possible? Maybe can we have them in CSVs files? Or maybe someone can say, I have a lot of data in a language which is not covered here. I've been working on this. How can I probably also make that available and then convert it into a manner that is amenable for machine learning? So I think that's another way you can contribute. And again, we don't want to limit you. Maybe someone, you have some dollars somewhere and you're saying, I want to promote this project. We'll be very happy to expand, as we are calling it Kenya. And there are over 60, and we're just but scratched the surface. So our intention to really expound this and to go even now looking at Africa.
Okay, thank you very much to all. I assume they can all get in contact with you through the KenCorpus website?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and we also have the KenCorpus email, yeah? I think it's already on the website, but it's really kencorpus@maseno.ac.ke. So you can also reach us through that email address.
Okay, we'll be sure to reshare that with our community. So we have another question from a PhD student who is keen on NLP models for local languages. So they're asking if you used transfer learning or you built a tokenizer from scratch.
Transfer learning, definitely. And actually, both are possible. Okay. One thing you can, you'll notice with our local languages, right from Kiswahili, unlike English, whereby there are clear separators, like, you know, this is a word, maybe the tenses, maybe at the, you know, the suffix. But Kiswahili, you know, 3 words in English can be converted into a single word in Kiswahili. So having those markers, how do you tokenize that? Breaking it, you know, separating the prefix, the stem word, and the suffix. Okay. So, but then it's very possible. One other thing we do is we try to see what are the existing tools, first of all. What's the similarity of that language to the language that you want to deal with, if it's a new language? As we definitely say, you know, there's no need of reinventing the wheel. If we find similarity, I'd rather pick, be it a part of speech tagger or whatever tokenizer, and use that to a language which is similar or very close. You won't go wrong in that sense.
Yeah, Dr. Mbuyu, and remember, we use that much into the annotation. Because when you come to annotating a word or a speech, tagging a speech, and you get that like Swahili, the example you have given, whereby aliye nitumikia. Look at that, and that is just one word, aliye nitumikia, ambapo kuna viambishi kadha vya kuonyesha mtendaji, mtendwa, na kadhalika. Then you are now trying to annotate that, or maybe giving it into a different language, whereby now we have the different tokens. Then it becomes a bit technical to know which, what does each and every prefix stand for in that particular sentence or a word in Kiswahili that has a lot of derivations as compared to single words, maybe in English or maybe in Nilotic languages. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Florence. So went to the last 2 questions. So we have someone who's asking, would you consider working with organizations like Bible translation and literacy missionaries who have learned the native language by immersion for, I know, a couple of years? So is this something you would consider doing?
Absolutely. I think, as we rightly previously, as we said here, this right from the collection, the kind of our data sources, we don't let me be careful about that, but we invite people of, you know, shared purpose, right from the community, be it the media or publishers. And as our peer indicated, we're sharing this data. We're not selling it as it is for now. You know, it's available publicly, and this is our little way of contributing from this side of the world to make sure that, yes, our languages are actually connected in the bigger platform of languages of the world.
Very right, because look at the history of translation of African languages. it all derives from the missionary work. And if you want to get original texts that have even a better translation, you can go to the Bible, and that is why I refer to the Bible, biblical text, and that is where we got much of our written texts in both Luo and Luya, as compared to the modern texts, because not very many people are writing in these languages. Of course, there is a lot of writing in Kiswahili. And so working with such a community is really, really a privilege, because you'll really learn a lot of skills, would really explore so much literature that is underneath, that has been developed for the purposes of spreading Christianity and for the purposes of documenting Christianity or other Christian messages. So it would be a very great opportunity for us if we got partners in this area, so that we can advance our research for that particular purpose.
Okay, thank you very much, Florence and Dr. Mbui. So for the last question is a bit of a general one. So they're asking, where in Kenya can one get data sets, especially financial data sets? I'm assuming this is to use as your training data or some sort of machine learning project.
Sorry, I didn't get. Go ahead, Lydian.
No, he's asking where in Kenya in particular I can get data sets, financial data sets. You know, like I'm assuming he wants like open source kind of, or you know, with better kind of licensing. Yeah, financial. It's a bit tricky. I'm not sure if there are many, if any, in terms of available online. Dr. Mbui, if you can check. Yeah. But I think there are several data sets that you can get, not necessarily in Kenya, okay? But financial data sets from elsewhere, okay? And see what can be able to do with it as you look for Kenyan data sets, okay? If you can be able to work with those ones, that can still be fine. If, for instance, if you have, what is it called? What is this where we get data sets for free? What is it called? This competition.
Yes, yes.
Zindi and Kaggle.
Yeah, Kaggle and
yes.
Zindi, exactly. Those are the ones I'm looking for. Yeah. So there's Zindi where they post data sets that you can be able to use, and also Kaggle. Those two are really where I can be able to get really data sets to try out different stuff. I will recommend those two at least to start.
Yeah, I was trying to check out Kenya Open Data. I don't know how frequently they update. I'm even surprised the link is not going through. But that's one place that I'd seen a couple of data sets. I'm not sure whether it was a one-time project. And I think that's why we keep on saying, in all this work, you really have to keep in touch. Your lines to the data sources, the community, the schools, the publishers, the media, so that it's a two-way. People don't feel used. You came, you got their data, you disappeared. But continually engaging, updating them, this is what we've done. And in so doing, you'll be surprised that, you know, right from the community sources, the resource people, they'll tell you, oh, we discovered there's more data here, on and on and on. Yeah, so for finance, I'm not sure, apart from the ones that Dr. Lydian has mentioned, Kaggle, and maybe there might be one out there which specifically looks at or takes care of that kind of data sets.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Lydian. So those are all the questions we had this evening. Back to you, Alfred.
Thank you, George, for handling that Q&A session. Perhaps from my end, just a few comments based on what has been shared. The point of the research permits and the bureaucracy, I wanted to find out how can we come in to help and influence so that that time of getting the permits to do the research can be shortened. As we are aware, we recently had the ICT practitioners bill that was tabled in Parliament, but through the unity of the tech ecosystem in Kenya, we were able to influence the president and the different legislators, and it was not passed. So what input do we need to do collectively so that we can address that problem of the bureaucracy?
That's a very challenging and tricky question, because we are in public institutions. We are also contributing to knowledge acquisition and research that goes into development, the development agenda. And being part of the institution, we are supposed to be part of the solution to this problem. But however, you realize that when you have very many institutions whereby then your work has to pass through this institution, goes to the next institution, goes to the next institution, and as it goes by, then you realize that the period taken, sometimes it goes into another institution and it takes a longer period. So as you have already voiced it, maybe as researchers, we can come together and make this known to the various bodies that are supposed to be giving us this particular permit, so that if one body has given you the permit, you don't need again to go to another body. One body can be enough so that it lessens the bureaucracies. For instance, I've already received a research permit from an ethics committee. Then I have again to go to NACOSTI. At the same time, when I go to a school, I have again to go through the county director again to give me a permit to access a school. So you can imagine, I've already received a permit from an education institution. Again, I want to access an education institution. I still need a permit to go to that education, a school or a university. Or I want to access a community. I have a permit from NACOSTI. I have a permit from my university. I still have to go to the commissioner or to whoever is to get a permit to access a community. So you can imagine all this, and everywhere you go is costly. So if we can come back, we can come up together, write a communication complaint so that some of the bureaucracies can be lessened. I think as researchers, that would do us good, so that we do not lose out an opportunity because of the bureaucracies. I don't know if my colleagues have another solution for it.
Nothing from my end, Prof.
Alfred, what would you have in mind? Because also as a researcher, how can we help one another?
I would say it would majorly be about just pointing out the frustrations as you've brought them, sharing it more with the community, because if we realize that there's a pattern in terms of the frustrations that people are sharing around a certain organization or a certain activity that people are trying to achieve, then that collective voice can be used to influence the decision makers so that the processes of getting these permits can be improved, and that bureaucracy of having multiple redundant sort of qualifications can be addressed. Yeah,
right.
So I would say the more we speak about it, and so that if you're saying you have that problem and I also realize I have that problem, then we realize we are not the only ones who are facing it. So now we need to come together and address it as a group.
You're right.
Yeah. Good. Other than that, I would say thank you very much to the speakers for the session, sharing their knowledge and experience with us. I would say this project really, it plays a very big role in terms of preservation of our cultures. I'd mentioned initially. We are looking at a future in AI where we are not only able to talk to digital assistants in English, but we should be able to converse with different digital assistants, not only in Swahili, not only in national languages, but also local languages, just to ensure that continuity of our culture and heritage. So I'd say this work is very important. And to anyone who uses this data set, please make sure that you properly cite the people who have contributed to it. So as a close of the session, so I would like to share, we already shared the question and answer platform. If you'd like to speak in any of our future events on AI Kenya, you can visit our website on kenya.ai/mentorship. And then there's a form that you can fill to say that this is the topic you want to speak about. And then we'll evaluate and get back to you. Our next event is in July. We'll have a Code Maktaba technical workshop on MLOps on Azure. We'll confirm the dates. We'll confirm the venue once we confirm it. Then we also have a public screening that we are planning for month of July. We'll also confirm that. So all our events, we share the updates on our AI Kenya meetup page. So if you're a member, you will automatically get an email or a notification whenever we are organizing a new event.
I have a question. Alfred.
Yes.
There's something you talked about Mawaidha.
Yeah.
And Mawaidha.
Mawaidha sessions.
Yes, Mawaidha session. And Mawaidha is a Kiswahili word, eh?
Yes.
For advice, eh?
Yes.
So how do you carry out your discussions? Do you carry them out in Kiswahili? And what are the topics? Are they related to giving advice?
So the Mawaidha session, the name is a wordplay. In terms of there's a part that has AI in it. So that was the inspiration around the name. And then the main aspect why we called it Mawaidha is because the event itself is meant to give advice on different topics, either directly on AI or related topics to AI. We have still been conducting them in English. We've not been conducting them in Swahili yet. That is a challenge that we are willing to take on, and maybe get one speaker who can deliver the session in Swahili. But majorly, it is normally a TED Talk style event where we have a speaker, they have about 10 or 20 minutes to share a presentation on a topic that they feel the community needs to consider. So previously, we've had 2 speakers. The first speaker was Geoffrey, and he was sharing about AI in healthcare. And then the second speaker was talking about robotics, how social robotics is influencing the industry. So yeah, that's a bit about the event. But so far we've not done any in Swahili, but we are hoping.
But the other challenge is about your audience, because depending on your audience, maybe then it would not be fair to do it in Swahili if the other audience does not understand Swahili. How wide is the audience? How diverse?
So the audience is primarily Kenyan.
Okay.
Most of them are Kenyans, so they would understand Swahili, but we have a small number of international, let's say, members who might not understand the language. But for physical, in-person meetings, part of it can be conducted in Swahili. Okay. It's usually a mix of the 2 languages, but predominantly English, so that everyone in the room can understand.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any questions before we close the event? Okay, then. So on that note, again, thank you very much to the speakers for sacrificing your time and sharing your knowledge with us on this topic. This event will still be live on YouTube. So for those who have missed, they can still be able to watch the session and then get back to the speakers or us in case of any follow-ups. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and close the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.